able to effectively fight against cybercrime, but we don't have to ensure that they are able to investigate any crime. Okay, the conclusion. There are serious legal and technical concerns regarding this instrument. I'm quite optimistic that it will never work, at least not the way the law enforcement agency wants it to work. So maybe it doesn't even bother us because they will realize they're not able to use it. That would be the best. If not, we will have to see the legal side, and we will have to see how to deal with the fact that this could really trigger our fundamental rights. And it is, and I've tried to demonstrate that before, not very likely that this instrument will be the solution for all our problems. No, it will only be helpful in very few cases. So it's not something that we really need to survive. And there is one thing why we shouldn't say, no, we don't discuss about this instrument. It could protect us from worse. And this is now where I'm coming back, we shouldn't compare. But let us keep this in mind. The politicians will start to compare it. So when we're talking about a ban on encryption technology and a ban on anonymous communication services, we should always be aware of the fact that we could maybe protect ourselves from that kind of legislation when we enable the use of strong instruments in very few cases. Let's say 5 or 10 cases a year, the most gravest violations. But what happened in the past all the time is in the beginning when they implemented those instruments, there were strict restrictions. And then in the years they started to add crimes, not only terrorism, now we can use it for child pornography, or first murder cases, then child pornography, and maybe finally hacking or fraud, computer fraud. And this is something what we should really ensure that this doesn't happen. I would like to thank you for your kind attention. If you have, I would like to open the discussion now, hear your point of view. If you have any question, send me an email.
Are there any questions or comments?
Hello. If we don't implement this, there will be stricter legislations. But how naive is it that if the government does think that I might blow up stuff, but if there's a law that I'm not allowed to use crypto, of course I would not use it? It's kind of naive, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, this is rather tricky. I would like us to prepare for the discussion. This is a discussion we will need to lead. I think it is. You're right from a certain point of view that it's naive to think it, but nevertheless, it's and this is one of the main arguments against, for example, restriction of encryption technology. What you would still use it, even if.
Wait. I think restricting crypto is fundamentally bad, of course, but so that would be a wrong law to implement. But if they are going to implement it, it's kind of naive that the bad guys won't be using it.
That's right, but there's, when we were talking about data retention, it's not only data retention I'm afraid of, I'm worried about, it's what is coming next. Because data retention is something which is completely useless as long as we have public internet terminals. What does it help you if you trace back the route and you come to a public internet terminal? So what I'm thinking of at the moment, and this is the reason I'm involved in a number of, I'm working for a number of international organizations like the Council of Europe, so what I'm realizing is that the discussion is always going on, what side measures do we need to ensure that we're able to use the instrument of data retention? And one of the side measures is prohibit the use of public terminals without identification. So when we are talking about your when you said it is naive to think that the criminals won't use it, law enforcement already know that. So what do? I would just like to give you an example from the UK. In their legislation, they have an instrument that they can force you to give you the key, to hand out the key. And if you say, listen, I'm not going to hand out the key, they will not start to torture you. That's okay. But what they will do is, they will convict you by just the fact that you're not handing out the key. So even if you haven't committed any crimes, but you just say, listen, I've encrypted my files, you don't have to care about my files, this is mine. By just refusing to hand out the key, you can face prosecution. And the bad thing with this law is, what happens if you lose your key or you forget your key? I mean, this happened to me before. So you say, I can't hand it out because I forgot it. So this will be a big problem. But then it comes again, the next thing what the offenders will do, as well as people who are interested in protecting their privacy, is they will use a software where you cannot really see that something is encrypted. Plausible deniability is the key word. So you have an encrypted file and you have a password. And inside you have another encryption what they can't see. So you're handing out the first password and say, okay, here it is. And they're just some illegal stuff, but minor illegal stuff. Let's say there is some porn stuff inside, but the real secret information are hidden in a place where they cannot even see it. So I think we have to prepare for the next step. We always have to be one step ahead. And right now when we're talking about the implementation of the Data Retention Directive, think about what is coming next. Do not only concentrate on the current discussion. This will keep you away from the discussion which is just going on. And don't make the same mistake again. Data retention could have been stopped on an international level. It's too late to stop it it is much more difficult to stop it in Germany. Same with hacking. The new legislation in Germany with regard to hacking tools, which is going to be in power tomorrow. We could have stopped that, you could have stopped it, but it's too late to do it on the national level when we're implementing international regulations which are already there. You have to do it on an international level, and the discussion about data retention in Germany should not keep you from watching what there is going on. And Italy is just one example for a country that is trying to implement side measures to ensure that the data retention is really effective.
I want to add something because, I mean, prohibiting encryption would have other disadvantages because, I mean, first of all, it would have some impact of like research on universities and stuff like this. It's not supported by the government anymore, like all the research on this topic. And also, I mean, it's one thing that the terrorists and maybe we as terrorists would continue using encryption, but it will be an even tougher thing to convince my mother or my little brother to use encryption once the state prohibits it. So it's one thing that we might still use encryption, but it's far more difficult to convince the huge part of the population to use encryption once it's prohibited. So it's not that easy. It's not completely. We can't ignore the fact that it's possible for the state to prohibit encryption, just because we can avoid it.
Any more questions or comments?
I don't see quite the advantage of such a tool because everything you can access via such a tool or keylogger or something like this you can also get when you photograph the monitor the suspect uses. So it's far more easier to get in and install a spy camera instead of going in, getting the information from the computer, developing the tool, get in, crack the password of the suspect and install it on the computer. You could just use a camera or a microphone.
The question is, okay, if you're sitting on a cafe outside, they might be able to use a camera to detect what you're doing. But how should they use a camera inside your building? If you're sitting inside your building and you're encrypting files, how should law enforcement agencies install a camera? And if they install a camera, just seen from a lawyer's perspective, this would record everything you're doing in the room. You're going to bed, you're undressing, whatever. The camera will record everything, and it will record what you're typing. So isn't this much more affecting your privacy than a tool that is simply recording what you're typing, but it cannot see you naked?
Well, a webcam does. A webcam does too.
Yeah. I think this is a point where I would like to lead the discussion. I mean, and I'm hoping that there will be much more discussion among you and that you will participate in the discussion that will go on. Do we need this instrument? Is there any advantage? And I was trying to demonstrate there are a few advantages, but these are just for a very few cases. It's not like we need it to survive. if we cannot investigate those crimes, okay, that can happen. I mean, if I'm clever enough and I hide evidence in my building in a way that the law enforcement agencies cannot find it, that can happen. Nobody can implement a law that says you're not allowed to hide information in your building, so law enforcement can find it. It's just, we have to persuade the government, we have to explain the government, we have to explain those people who are responsible for such legislation why we do not need the instrument, why there are technical things that they should keep in mind that will raise concerns if such an instrument would work and would be necessary.
To be quite honest, from a technical point of view, I don't see any way of hiding the software in a computer system, because as you said, it would require interoperation between private businesses and the government. But if those private businesses say, all right, we don't scan for this software, you already have a signature, and as somebody committing illegal activities, all you have to do is take a look at the antivirus software, and already you know what to look for and how to prevent the Bundestrojaner to affect you.
Yeah, but this is a solution I'm looking for. I mean, the thing is, if we finally have this Bundestrojaner, if we have the software, if they succeed in programming it, maybe it's very easy to detect it. Maybe there will be a tool which you can install on your computer that detects the software. I mean, this is something what we need to protect our privacy. If we realize the tool is, we're able to program it and it would work, but it's so easy to detect it that it finally doesn't work, that would be great. I mean, if law enforcement agencies are installing a camera inside your building and you find the camera and take it away and throw it in the bin, good, okay, that just proves that solution doesn't work. And I mean, you have the capacity. If it turns out it's like you said, you are able to detect the software because it's all working on the same basis, wonderful. Then this software shouldn't be there because it's useless. The idea is you should install something. This is the only advantage of the software. It's installed and nobody recognizes it. So you go on committing crimes and they can identify you. They can see what you're doing. But if everybody can find it, wrong tool.
Yeah, I think from a technical point of view it's just plain impossible. I mean, you could do stuff like virtual machines, but that would require interoperation with the hardware vendors so that you could hide really everything. And in that case, somebody who is really interested in not being detected would just develop their own hardware and use that instead. So there's no technical way of that working at all. I really can't see how. I mean, if somebody knows, tell me.
Yeah, it will be very interesting. It will be interesting to speak to those guys who are sitting there and trying to program such a software, because I mean there are so many criminals out there who are making a lot of money by intruding the system, by implementing software on your computer system. I mean, they would do it if they would have the possibility, and they have a lot of money. They have great people who are working for them. So if hackers, spammers, whoever, if they would see any possibility to build such a software, they would do it. Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite convinced just because there's a technical problem that it's enough to stop it. I'm from Denmark and we have a very populist party that supports the government, and their main trick is to support answers. And I mean, this Schäuble Bundestrojaner is an answer. And just to say, I'll take away your answer, leave the people without anything, and just more on the look for some quick tech fix or some not so tech fix. And to me the big problem is that this is in the open, declared, this is the answer, do relax. I don't see the problem being technical. I see the problem is taking away the teddy bear from someone who's cuddling the big answer. Sorry.
Well, good point. No question. I mean, I think we should address the problem from a number of perspectives. And I think that if this instrument would, from a technical point of view, not be able to be realized, Well, this is one argument that we need. We have to say, I mean, it's like a big camera. Take a big red camera, you place it right in the building. Everybody would see it. That wouldn't be a sufficient instrument. But we need to address the topic from a number of perspectives. There's a legal issue as well. We have to ensure that we fight against